Johnny.
That was awesome, Johnny.
I mean, I just took advantage of the situation.
For more than a decade, Barnwood Builders has captured the hearts of millions, a celebration of craftsmanship, history, and the rugged charm of life in the Appalachian Mountains. But among the crew of hardworking craftsmen, one man has always stood out: Johnny Jett. Soft-spoken, wise, and endlessly skilled, Johnny became the soul of the show. The man who could take a pile of weathered timber and turn it into something breathtaking. Fans loved his humor, his humility, and that unmistakable twinkle in his eye. But then, without warning, Johnny began to disappear from the screen. Episodes aired where he was nowhere to be seen. The crew carried on, but something felt off. Something was missing. Speculation exploded online. Had Johnny retired? Was he sick? Or had something tragic happened behind the scenes that no one was talking about? Today, we uncover the truth, what really happened to Johnny Jett from Barnwood Builders, and how his story reflects something much deeper than television fame. Before television, before fame, before fans around the world knew his name, Johnny Jett was just a quiet craftsman from Kentucky who lived a simple life. Born in 1949, he grew up surrounded by the kind of hard work that shapes character. His father was a carpenter, and young Johnny learned early that a pair of strong hands and an honest day's work could build anything, from barns to a future. But it wasn't just construction that fascinated him. Johnny loved history. Not the kind in textbooks, but the kind you could touch. He saw stories in every log, every nail, every weathered beam. In the 1970s, he began salvaging old barns and cabins that were falling apart, not for money, but to preserve the stories they carried. While others saw decaying wood, Johnny saw memories, the labor of generations long gone. Over time, his work caught the attention of people across West Virginia and beyond. He developed a reputation as a craftsman who didn't just rebuild, he resurrected. And when Mark Bowe, another local builder with a passion for history, decided to create a business dedicated to saving old American structures, there was only one man he wanted by his side. That partnership, one of mutual respect and shared passion, would change both of their lives forever. But neither of them could have predicted what was coming next: cameras, fame, and a TV show that would take their quiet, humble work and turn it into a nationwide phenomenon. When Barnwood Builders first premiered on the DIY network in 2013, no one expected it to become a hit. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't scripted. It was just a group of down-to-earth craftsmen, Mark Bowe, Johnny Jett, Sherman Thompson, Graham Ferguson, and Tim Rose, doing what they loved, taking down old barns and turning them into something new. But that's exactly why people fell in love with it. Unlike most reality TV, Barnwood Builders wasn't about drama. It was about integrity, teamwork, and the simple beauty of creating something real. And at the heart of that magic was Johnny Jett. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. He'd throw out a one-liner, make the crew laugh, or deliver a bit of quiet wisdom that perfectly summed up what the show was all about. He was the kind of man who could walk into a collapsing barn, run his hand across the wood, and instantly tell you its story. To fans, Johnny became a symbol of something rare, a reminder that craftsmanship, humility, and kindness still mattered in a world that often forgot them. But as Barnwood Builders grew into one of the most watched restoration shows on TV, things started to change behind the scenes. The fame, the travel, and the grueling work schedule began to take their toll, especially on Johnny, who was already in his late 60s when the series began. The question became, how long could he keep it up? When Barnwood Builders hit its stride, the crew was busier than ever. They were traveling constantly, taking down barns across the Appalachian Mountains, salvaging 200-year-old wood, and rebuilding them into modern masterpieces. For Mark Bowe, who was in his prime, that workload was manageable. But for Johnny Jett, who had already spent decades on construction sites long before the show, the endless hours and physical strain began to take their toll. Fans may not have realized it, but Barnwood Builders wasn't just hard work, it was dangerous work. Climbing unstable beams, handling heavy logs, working through heat, cold, and rain, it all required incredible stamina. Johnny, being the kind of man who never complained, kept pushing through it. Even as his hands stiffened with age and his back began to ache from years of lifting, he showed up every day with the same quiet determination. But behind the scenes, the signs were there. Crew members noticed that he was slower to climb ladders, that he'd quietly take short breaks when nobody was looking. Mark and the others tried to help, but Johnny was proud. Too proud to admit that time was finally catching up with him. He once said in an interview, "I don't think about how old I am when I'm working. I just think about the job." That kind of dedication made him a legend, but it also pushed him to the brink. Then came the subtle shift. Johnny started appearing in fewer episodes. Sometimes he'd show up briefly at the start of a project, and then vanish for the rest of the build. Other times, his name wouldn't appear in the credits at all. Fans noticed immediately, and the speculation began. Had he retired quietly? Was he sick? Or was there something the network wasn't telling viewers? No one, not even Mark Bowe, addressed it publicly for months, and that silence only fueled more rumors. Then, in 2019, a story began spreading online that left fans heartbroken. A false rumor that Johnny Jett had passed away. It spread like wildfire across social media, with thousands of fans posting tributes, condolences, and memories. But thankfully, within days, those close to Johnny confirmed what everyone hoped. He was alive. Alive, but tired. Alive, but stepping back. The years of work and fame had caught up with him, and it was time to slow down. But there was another, deeper reason for his absence. One rooted not in fame, but in grief. Behind Johnny Jett's calm smile and quiet demeanor was a man who had experienced more loss than most people ever will. For years, fans only knew the TV version of Johnny, the funny, hard-working craftsman with a heart of gold. But off-camera, he had endured profound heartbreak. He'd lost close family members, including his brother, who was one of his greatest influences growing up. He'd lost friends, some from the hard realities of the construction world, others from natural causes over time. And when Barnwood Builders lost one of its own crew members, the pain hit Johnny especially hard. He wasn't just losing co-workers, he was losing family. Mark Bowe once said that Johnny had a big heart and an old soul, and those who worked with him knew how much he carried silently. While some cast members coped by staying busy or cracking jokes, Johnny became quieter. He spent more time off-set, away from the cameras, focusing on his art, painting vivid, detailed landscapes and rustic scenes that reflected his love for nature and history. It was his escape, a way to keep creating, even when his body couldn't handle the physical demands of building anymore. Fans who later discovered his artwork online were stunned by his talent. It was like his craftsmanship had simply shifted mediums, from barns to brushstrokes. Still, for a man who spent decades surrounded by sawdust, steel, and brotherhood, the isolation of slowing down weighed heavily. Johnny wasn't gone, but a chapter of his life had ended. And that begged the question, was Barnwood Builders moving on without him? Or would Johnny Jett's story find a way to continue? As Barnwood Builders entered its later seasons, something became clear. The show was changing. The crew had grown, production had become bigger, and episodes were now edited with faster pacing and a slicker, more modern tone. But something else was missing. The quiet magic that Johnny Jett brought to the screen. Mark Bowe and the others did their best to fill the gap. They kept the humor, the camaraderie, and the heart, but fans noticed the difference immediately. In online forums and comment sections, longtime viewers said it just wasn't the same without Johnny. He wasn't the loudest member of the team, but he was the balance, the calm, the soul. His wisdom grounded the show. His gentle nature softened the hard edges of demolition and reconstruction. Even Mark Bowe acknowledged in an interview that Johnny's presence was irreplaceable, saying, "There's only one Johnny Jett. Nobody sees the world the way he does." Still, television moves forward. Seasons rolled on, new locations were explored, and Barnwood Builders continued to pull in strong ratings. But off-screen, Johnny's life had taken a quieter turn. He wasn't interested in chasing the spotlight or being on magazine covers. For him, the fame had always been accidental. What mattered was the work, the wood, the history, the craft. And though he wasn't on camera as often, he remained a mentor and guiding hand for the younger crew members, offering advice, sharing stories, and teaching them to respect the materials they worked with. Johnny had become more than a TV personality. He was now a living symbol of the show's deeper message, that you can preserve the past while still moving forward. But while Johnny was content to fade from the limelight, fans weren't ready to let him go. So when he finally reappeared for a surprise cameo in a later episode, smiling, laughing, and cracking jokes with the old crew, social media erupted. Viewers flooded the internet with joy, posting messages like, "Johnny's back," and "The heart of Barnwood Builders has returned." It was a powerful reminder that even if you step away from fame, you never really leave the hearts of those you've touched. But behind that heartwarming reunion was another truth, one that would reveal just how much Johnny's outlook on life had evolved through pain, loss, and decades of hard work. Away from the cameras, Johnny Jett embraced the quiet life that so many dream about, but few truly achieve. He still lived in West Virginia, not in a mansion, not in a Hollywood condo, but in a modest home surrounded by woods, tools, and memories. Each morning, he'd walk outside, smell the mountain air, and start his day doing what he loved most: creating. If it wasn't restoring old furniture or helping a friend with a small build, it was painting. His artwork, which started as a private hobby, began to attract attention online. Fans were amazed to see the same hands that had built cabins now creating stunning, soulful art. Landscapes filled with emotion, colors inspired by Appalachian sunsets, and rustic imagery that seemed to whisper stories of the past. But for Johnny, art wasn't about recognition. It was about peace. After decades of intense physical labor and emotional strain, painting became his form of meditation, a way to honor the same spirit of craftsmanship that made him famous, without the pain or pressure. Friends say he's as content as ever, smiling more, talking more, and grateful for the life he's built. He still keeps in touch with the Barnwood Builders crew, still jokes with Mark Bowe, and still receives fan letters from around the world, often from people who say his kindness inspired them to start woodworking, building, or simply to appreciate the beauty of honest work. Johnny once said, "The world throws away too much. Old barns, old wood, old people. But everything old has value. You just have to look close enough to see it." That quote became something of a mantra for his fans, a reminder that even as time moves on, there's still dignity, beauty, and purpose in age, experience, and imperfection. And maybe that's why his story resonates so deeply. He never let fame change him. He never stopped caring about the work. And when it was time to step away, he did it with grace, choosing peace over attention and legacy over fame. But there's still one question left, one that fans continue to ask to this day. Will Johnny Jett ever return to Barnwood Builders full-time again? For years now, one question has lingered among Barnwood Builders fans around the world. Will Johnny Jett ever return full-time to the show that made him a household name? Mark Bowe has addressed this question several times in interviews, and his answer has always carried the same tone: love and respect. He's made it clear that Johnny will always be part of the Barnwood family, whether or not the cameras are rolling. And truthfully, for Johnny, it's never been about fame or being on TV. He said before that the cameras were just another tool, that what really mattered was the work and the people he worked with. Still, when fans caught a glimpse of him in a special episode, laughter echoing through the workshop like old times, something stirred in everyone's hearts. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was hope. Hope that the man who represented everything genuine about Barnwood Builders might one day return, even briefly, to remind us what the show was truly about: craftsmanship, friendship, and preserving the American spirit. Behind the scenes, though, Johnny has made peace with his life outside of television. He's 74 now, and while he's still active, the long hours and physical demands of filming just aren't what they used to be. When asked about retirement, he once smiled and said, "You can't retire from doing what you love. You just do it slower." And that's exactly what he's doing. Still creating, still restoring, still living life by the same simple principles that made him a fan favorite from day one. His fans, meanwhile, continue to honor him with letters, art, and even woodworking projects inspired by his legacy. To them, Johnny Jett doesn't need to return to TV because he never really left. He's become something bigger than the show itself, a living symbol of pride, humility, and timeless craftsmanship. But what about Barnwood Builders? How has the show carried on without him? And what does it look like today? Today, Barnwood Builders is still going strong, a rare achievement in the world of television. New faces have joined, old friends have stayed, and the crew continues to travel across the country, saving pieces of America's history one barn at a time. Yet, no matter how much changes, Johnny's fingerprints are still everywhere. His teachings, his methods, his philosophy live on in every build. When the crew carefully removes a log without breaking it, when they stop to talk about the families who built the original structures, when they pause to appreciate the smell of aged timber, that's all Johnny. He shaped not only the style of the work, but the soul of it. Even Mark Bowe admits that much of the show's heart came from Johnny's influence. In interviews, he said things like, "Johnny taught us to slow down, to look closer, to appreciate what we were doing, not just rush to finish it." And that's exactly what has kept the show alive: authenticity. In a world full of scripted reality TV, Barnwood Builders still feels real, and much of that authenticity traces back to Johnny Jett. The crew often dedicates moments of silence or nostalgic throwbacks to the early days, the laughter, the mistakes, the small-town charm. They never say it directly, but fans can feel it. Every frame of Barnwood Builders still carries Johnny's spirit. He might no longer be the one swinging the hammer, but he'll always be the foundation that holds the show together. And in many ways, that's the greatest tribute of all, that a humble craftsman from Kentucky could leave a legacy that stretches far beyond television. Johnny Jett never set out to be famous. He never wanted to be a star or a celebrity. He just wanted to build things that mattered. But in doing so, he built something far more powerful, a connection with millions of people who saw in him a reflection of what America once stood for: honesty, hard work, and heart. His story isn't one of tragedy, it's one of quiet triumph, a reminder that success doesn't come from fame or fortune, but from living a life of purpose, humility, and gratitude. Today, Johnny continues to inspire fans all over the world, not with grand speeches or flashy TV moments, but with the same steady hands and quiet smile that made him unforgettable. And while Barnwood Builders will continue to evolve, one truth will always remain: without Johnny Jett, the show, and the world of craftsmanship just wouldn't be the same. He showed us that every piece of wood has a story, every life has value, and that even when the cameras stop rolling, the legacy of good men never fades. So, wherever he is, painting, building, or just sitting on his porch, surrounded by the beauty of West Virginia, one thing is certain: Johnny Jett has already built something that will last forever. Because the strongest structures aren't made of wood, they're made of heart.